One of the unique things about successful people is that they give themselves permission to make mistakes. This is so crucial, this is so important. And this is what creates an entrepreneurial culture. I know that that's one of the differences between certain countries. You go to a particular country like the United States, if you've made mistakes before in terms of business and you go and you ask the bank for a loan, a lot of banks will still give you the money because they know that you've got a lot of university fees there. You've earned your stripes. You've made errors, but you've learned from them. A bit like Thomas Edison, isn't it? We've all heard of that great example of how he made all sorts of errors with regards to the light bulb, with regards to electricity. But what happened? He ended up saying, I learned thousands of ways not to cause the light bulb to function. So that's an entrepreneurial mentality. You follow your instincts and you're okay, you're comfortable with making mistakes. It ends up actually affecting your leadership style. You allow people to make errors. I often say this, it also affects you in terms of how you delegate to people. I always say this, if someone can do something 80% as well as you, let them do it. Pass it on to them. Give them a chance to grow. The worst thing is working under a leader where there's no room for error. Now look, I understand there's some situations where you shouldn't delegate because there's no room for error. But most things, you should be able to give room for that error. You know that. You yourself a few years ago were even worse off than that individual you're being so harsh towards because they've made a mistake. It's okay to make mistakes as long as you learn from them. Now when you keep making the same mistake over and over again, it means you're not learning. But you go to some countries and if they find that you've had a failed business in the past, what do? They'll never give you money. They'll never loan you money to start that new business. If we want to create entrepreneurial cultures, we have to make room for error. We have to allow people to make mistakes. Remember also that mistakes are often very subjective. What people call a mistake very often is, he didn't do it my way. She didn't do it how I would have done it. Not necessarily a mistake, just because they didn't do what you would do. Maybe you're a control freak and things have to be done a certain way. You know what the problem with mistakes is? The thing about fear of making mistakes is that it's one of the biggest causes of anxiety. When you're afraid of making an error, you end up feeling more anxious and then you make more errors. It's actually been found that when you give yourself permission to make mistakes, you end up making less. Are you being hard on yourself? Maybe you're working under someone who makes that room for error, who says, I know you're on a learning journey here. I understand if you mess up here and there. And maybe you're in a place where you're the one who's actually being hard on yourself. Maybe you grew up in a family environment where whenever you got 95%, you were told what happened to the other 5%. Or maybe you grew up with parents where each time you came second in class, they'll say, why didn't you come first in class? And you've got this built-in thing that I cannot make mistakes. Or maybe you've grown up in an environment where you're actually looking for perfection because that's what validates you. You feel in your mind that if I'm perfect, if I get 100%, then I'll be accepted. So maybe your identity is in your perfection. There are many reasons why people become afraid of making errors. But just remember, being afraid of making errors, fear, anxiety, ends up debilitating you and you end up not performing. Anxiety is one of the biggest reasons why people don't perform in all areas of life. I'll leave to your imagination other areas where anxiety can cause lack of performance.